a hummingbird moth.
I don't want your service. I don't want those messages again. I want to be your friend. I want to be your friend.
Welcome to the Making Useless Things podcast. I'm Gracie. This is a little show where I sit down and I talk about all the things that I've been making lately, usually pertaining to knitting or sewing or crafting of some sort. Generally the fiber arts, because that's where my interest lies. Occasionally I share my artwork if I feel like it's something fun to talk about. So this is the 6th episode. I feel like I just started this yesterday and I have no idea what I'm doing. But somehow it's been 6 months since I've started making these videos, and I wish I could do make them a little bit more on a regular basis, but right now life doesn't really allow for that, so I just kind of wait till things build up and then I sit down and I just chit chat about everything. Alright, so a little catch up. I think my last episode was in July, and I shared stuff about my trip to Arizona and all sorts of different things. As far as a life update since then, the only really big and terrible thing that happened was the month of July in general was just bad. It started out with me getting rear-ended, and so my vehicle was completely and utterly totaled. And luckily, by the grace of God, I was completely uninjured, and the other driver was mostly uninjured as well. So we're finally working out all the insurance. It's pretty much done. I don't really want to get into super intense details, but being rear-ended, if you've ever had that experience before, is somewhat traumatizing, and it's pretty terrifying to get back into the car and have any trust in the drivers and people around you. So I've slowly been working on that and getting over all the stress and anxiety that brought, and the stress and anxiety of purchasing a car and dealing with insurance and stuff like that. So now we're finally at the tail end of all of that. I didn't really need any further medical assistance, which is really wonderful. So because the state of my car, if you saw my car, you would think that somebody might have been a little bit more injured, but it worked out in a really nice way. It worked out very well. I guess it's as terrible as an accident is to be in the end, like, everything just, came together. It's been really stressful and pretty exhausting for the most part to have to deal with all of that. But the weird thing is, I got a lot of knitting mojo, and I got a lot of knitting done. So that was what was relatively surprising, because sometimes when I get stressed out, knitting just, I don't even think about that. So I think it was successful, as terrible as July was. But now we're almost done with August, so I guess it's been like 2 months since my last podcast, which is okay. I think we'll get into knitting stuff now. Let's talk about knitting and all the good things and not dwell on anything bad. So I hope all of you have been having a pretty good summer so far. Like I said, knitting for me, it's been good. So I finished quite a few projects, and all of them have been really good projects, satisfying and satisfactory. So the first one I actually don't have to show you. They are a pair of socks called Wink socks. I shared them. They were a work in progress in the last episode, and they are just plain old vanilla socks, and I knit them up, and they were a little bit too big for me because I didn't measure where to put the heel in. So luckily my sister-in-law wanted them, so I sent them off to her. They were knit in Madeline Tosh Euro Sock in the colorway Wink. And then the next goodie, the first is I finished my ripple crop top. So this is a pattern by JessieMaed. It is a simple crop top pattern that I just knit up, man. It was very popular on Instagram and I was seeing it everywhere and I was loving the look of it, and I just thought that was a perfect summer knit. And so I got into it and I made it, and I'm gonna insert some footage here of me wearing it. I will say that I wish it was a little bit longer for a crop top, because if I'm kind of, if I go to raise my hands over my head, it's gonna come up a little bit too high. So I have to make sure that I'm wearing it with something that's pretty high-waisted, or wearing it like under my overalls, in order for me to feel comfortable going out into public with it. But other than that, the fit is so comfortable, and it's actually like I knit it in wool. I think this is Merino, Madeline Tosh Merino Light. I'm pretty sure both of them are. It's 2 colorways, so I ended up fading it. I know one of the colorways is under Wildlings and one is Fate, I believe. So I think altogether it's a really wonderful pattern, and I look forward to making it again, and hopefully with a little bit more length to it. I would have made this longer. I did not have enough yarn for that. I was stretching it there at the end of my sleeves. So still a very wearable piece, and I enjoy it a lot, and I'm really excited to make some more of her designs, hopefully in the future when I have some spare cash to purchase patterns. The next thing that I have been working on and that I finished is what I'm wearing right now, because you have to wear something that you knit when you do a podcast. So this is the Perkins Cove Pullover, and I'll go ahead and insert some video of me wearing it, because right now I'm in sweatpants, so I'm not standing up and dancing around. This pattern is from Quince & Co, because it's normally in their linen, but the pattern is written by Pam Allen, and it is very simple. It is just knit in linen, and then these kind of stretched out stitches are just wrapped stitches that you drop on the next, or you knit and you drop the wraps on the following row. So you get this nice lovely kind of lacy look, and then in order to kind of create this very subtle A-line shape, you change your needle size rather than doing increases or any shaping like that. The only thing is I did not have quite enough yarn to continue my sleeves to be like the average quarter length, so past the elbow. So I kind of had to cut off on this like awkward Bermuda sleeve length, which is okay. I wish I had the forethought to go back in and just like maybe bring this in a little bit closer so it doesn't look so baggy, but I don't really mind. It's kind of just supposed to be like a more comfortable everyday sort of linen top, rather than a more presentable piece. So it's supposed to be throw it on over your bathing suit or something. I will note that knitting with linen yarn is not my favorite. Wearing a linen piece is usually not my favorite either. It's sometimes itchy, or just it stretches out very easily. So you have to be very careful with your measurements and making sure that you do usually go a little bit smaller or a little bit less positive ease, in order to make sure that the linen has the room to grow once it's blocked. And then after even a couple wears, just because the weight of gravity will just pull it down and make it longer, because I have another linen top that I knit a few years ago, and it just gets more and more long. So when I finished it, it was at my hips, as far as length goes, and now it's to the middle of my bum. So I'm not super knowledgeable about linen yarn, but from my experience of knitting with it, I've just seen this kind of tends to happen. So this linen is actually by Kelbourne Woolens. In their linen yarn, it's called Mojave, I think. Is that how you pronounce it? It's like the desert. Mojave? Mojave? I always pronounced it Mojave, and now I'm just doubting myself because I'm saying it out loud. In the colorway Smoke Gray, which it's actually more of a lavender. It just kind of depends on the lighting, you know? I knit this very quickly. I think it took me like around 3 weeks, maybe less time, because it's so simple and it had just a lot of just knitting, and I really needed a project like that for that point in time where I was like under a lot of stress and I still wanted to knit, and then I'd have downtime because I was stuck at home without a car or I was stuck, you know, waiting somewhere to talk to somebody or all that stuff. So I had a lot of time to work on this. So it flew off my needles, and plus the simplicity of the pattern just made it go even faster. Because it was pretty easy to memorize the stages of the stitches and when you had to do your wrap stitches, and it was really easy to count them out, to count all your rows. So altogether really fun, and if you're looking for something super simple and you want to do linen, I'd say this is a pretty great project to start with. I think that's all that I have to say about that. Oh, I forgot the other project that I was going to show you guys, but my cats are sleeping on it, so I'm going to insert a little picture right here in a video. So I had this like chunky yarn that I bought at Michael's on sale a while ago, and it was actually for my sister. She was going to do a project with it, and then she decided she didn't want it and she gave it back to me. So I was like, well, this just takes up a lot of space, so I need to make something with it really fast. And I just whipped up this little cat bed. I followed a YouTube video by BeCozi, and it worked out really well. So they enjoy using it as a little cave, but then their favorite thing to do is just sleep on top of it. So because cave usually lasts for like 20 minutes, they'll sleep on it, and then one cat will come over and like sleep on top of the other cat, and then it just gets crushed down. So all in all, it still works as a functional bed, and they really enjoy it, and it's what they needed for in their corner of their bedroom, or not their bedroom, of our bedroom, because they normally just sleep on the carpet, and for some reason, you know, being the cat mother I am, speak of the devil. Whoa, look at him. He's such a big boy. Say hi. Okay. Alright, can you chill out? You gotta be quiet. What were we talking about? Okay, I was talking about the cat bed. So it was very successful and it worked out really well. And I was super lucky because that cat bed, the yarn that I used, I got it on like real cheap sale. So it's like normally like $30 or something for a roll, and then it was on sale for like 75% off, and then I got an extra discount because I worked there. So just gonna say. So heads up if you're interested in buying that. Michael's always has pretty good coupons, so just keep an eye out for those deals before you go and buy it full price, because you can definitely get a good discount on it. And it also helps if you know somebody who works at a Michael's. Just be like, help me out, bro, and they'll help you out. So just a little secret. Tricks of the trade, you know? Alright, so that wraps up my finished objects. I haven't really finished anything else completely. So before I get into talking about my actual works in progress, I'm going to talk about some like sort of works in progress, which is going to be interesting. So many years ago, when I was a young knitter, and so this was like 6-7 years ago, I thought that I was a hot shot and I knew what I was doing with socks. So I wrote some patterns and I posted them online. You can actually still find them. They're all on Ravelry. And, you know, I didn't edit these things. I didn't re-knit these socks. I didn't test them myself or ask other people to test them. I was too scared to ask people on the internet to help me. So I just stuck them out there. I think originally they cost money, and then I came to my senses and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, these should just be free, and then people can just do as they wish with them. So I have recently started to consider getting back into writing knitting patterns. I have a few that I have sort of stashed up, and I would really like to open up an Etsy shop as well, to post my patterns on, as well as on Ravelry. I'm just looking to see if I can just like have some extra cash that I can maybe spend and invest back into my knitting hobby. Not necessarily like, this is my career, is now knitting patterns. I just kind of want to flesh it out and see where it goes. But my first start, I thought, would be to kind of re-edit and reimagine these older knitting patterns that I have. So I started with one sock pattern. It's called Tiny, oh goodness, it's called Tiny Bow Knot Ankle Socks, because I don't know. So here's a picture of the pattern of what they originally looked like. So they were actually colorworks socks to some degree. The toes and heels were different colors, but there was a couple stitches along the ankle that are the yellow. But very simple, and there's this very simple little stitch pattern across the front of the foot. So I decided to just test it out and remake them, and I did, and I hate it. I hate them. And I just went straight through. The pattern. I didn't really make too many adjustments. The only thing that I did that kind of added to the dislike of this pattern was I upped my needle size. The original pattern calls for US 1s, and I opted for US 2s, which was my mistake. So these are too big. They have way too much stretch, and when you put them on, either the toe is falling off my toes or the heel is falling off my heels. So it's just way too big. So, and I enjoy snug fitting socks. I don't want these big floppy slippery socks. It's also weirdly tall for an ankle sock, so it like kind of goes over your ankle but not quite enough, so it hits your ankle at a weird spot, and it's just very unattractive. I'm also not super fond of this yarn for this sock pattern either, and I actually think that this yarn is going to get reused for something completely different. So this sock, I only kept it intact because I wanted to share it with you guys on the podcast. So yeah, there was a lot wrong with it. The toe was funky because of the cast on method that I used for the toe. It's kind of janked up. Then everything else for the foot of the sock is okay, but then the heel and the wrap stitches, I'm not very good at wrap stitches, and I always have I have a lot of holes. So I kind of had to reconsider that. Just stitch counts are weird. It was all a mess. Plus my explanations and descriptions on how to do some of these things are out there. So I'm on the fence of keeping this sock pattern at all. This one's going to be shelved for a while. It'll come back. I think I'll do the edits that I can for right now, but not make any major changes. Just make the pattern more clear and a little bit more accessible. But obviously that's going to stay a free pattern. And if you're interested in doing it, you can go ahead and knit it up. So that's, I think, what I had to say for that. This yarn here that I use, this is Madeline Tosh Euro Sock, again, because once upon a time I thought that this was the world's greatest sock yarn. I have since then learned otherwise. But it is in the colorway Demodog, so it was part of their Stranger Things colors that they came out with 2 years ago, or when the second season of Stranger Things came out. And I was a very big fan of Stranger Things yarn, so I was buying it up from everyone. That's how I got this. So still speaking of patterns and rewriting patterns, I have the second sock pattern that I'm working on, which is way more successful, and that is my Bells on Their Toes sock. This I think was the very first sock pattern that I put out there. And it's just this lace pattern, simple, with some purl stitches on the side. And then the original pattern called for lace around kind of the ankle area, because it's just an ankle sock. And this time around, after, you know, quite a few people have knit this on Ravelry and have made their own adjustments because my instructions were terrible. So a lot of people have just utilized the lace pattern and knit their own form of the sock. And so that's really fun to see and kind of see how people have adjusted it. And I think one of the things that I really enjoy is how people treat the ankle, because what I found with my original pair of socks is I had the lace pattern on the back heel, and that again leads to holes because you don't have enough yarn there and structure for wear and tear on your heel. So this time I'm opting for a slip stitch heel pattern, and I'm going to see how that works out. Hopefully it's not too tight. I'm trying to go for some flexibility so you can get it around your heel. I didn't try anything too new with the slip stitches on the heel, or these aren't slip stitches, wrap stitches, so short row heel, because it's knit from the toe up. So I don't know, I'm working on that. I'm not really great at it. My toe is still a little funky, but I'm knitting these on US 1s, so my toe is like at least not as giant as the other one where it engulfs like your whole foot. So I think I'm just going to keep that to just keep it more similar to the original pattern. I don't want to make any major adjustments. I want it to be pretty similar so that other people who have knit the pattern aren't like, whoa, like what is this sock pattern? So again, the original knitting pattern was knit in this cotton yarn from Knit Picks. But this one is knit in Wooly Mammoth Fibre Co. natural sock base. So I have a couple of her sock samples, and I just thought that it would be perfect. It's the perfect amount of yarn, because right now I'm here at the little bit of cuff that I have to cast off. So I'm going to have the perfect amount for an ankle sock, which is really cool, and I think it's super pretty. And the second sock is going to be different. It's going to have purple speckles instead of green, so it'll be fun to see different ones. So that's probably way too much about that. Let's talk about the only other pattern that I'm knitting, because that's what I have, and I have not gotten very far. I'm like nowhere. So this is the very, very beginnings of Morginn by Katrin Schneider. It is a pattern from the 4th Lane magazine, which I purchased on sale a long time ago. Let me see if I can find a picture of the pattern to show you guys. It's very pretty. It's just a big fluffy cardigan. It's knit in fisherman, the fisherman stitch, the fisherman like ribbing stitch. There we go. So I got a whole bag of Wonderfluff by Knit Picks. This is their imitation of loft yarn, I want to say it is. So it's that like casing where they blow just like fiber into it, and it's like very soft and very fluffy. And I was going through all of my patterns and trying to figure out all my yarn and organizing, which I'll get into a little bit later, and I just saw that pattern and was like, it's a match made in heaven. So that's what I've been working on. I actually haven't really gotten very far because I've been trying to focus on like the socks and something else that I'm working on right now. So I haven't gotten too far into this project yet, but I'm excited because it's going to be kind of starting to get into fall. We're going to be having colder weather, and probably by the time I finish this, it's going to be perfect weather for this. And lately, every time I've kind of been cold, I've been like really wishing I had a cardigan of some sort to put on rather than a pullover sweater. I'm just like, I want that option to kind of like hang it off my shoulders, or just like use it sort of as a blanket, and not be completely confined and have to like stop and pull it off if I want to get a little bit cooler. A cardigan with a lot of ease that isn't super tight and fitted is what I'm looking for. So something very floofy. Let's just talk about the next pattern, which is not a pattern at all. So this is me improvising. This is my own bag, as always. I only use my own bag, so you're gonna see them like repeated. I haven't sewn any new knitting bags at all. So I started something. This is sad. It's wonderful and I love it, and I'm just improvising my own pattern, which is really fun and exciting, but I'm trying to knit a sweater, yet I only have one skein of the yarn. Life's problem, you know? So I don't know how accessible it is to get another skein of this color. We'll find out someday down the road. I have no idea. Right now I'm calling this the mystery project, but I'm absolutely obsessed with it. I think this is gonna be amazing. Look at this. Do you see this? Do you see this? Ah. Okay. I was not expecting these two yarns to go together, and I was just messing around, and I had an idea in my brain, and I was like, I'm gonna start knitting this sweater. And I was like, cast on, I was like, okay, this collar is definitely too small. And then I put it on, and I was like, no, that's actually really cute, and I'm just gonna keep going. So I am knitting it with this pink coral yarn. This is by Malabrigo. I don't know any other information than it's Malabrigo yarn, but this is all that I have left. That's it, and I don't have money to purchase more, so we'll see what happens. This will probably get shelved once I finish the yarn, and then once I happen to have spare cash to buy yarn, I'll get some. Then I'm also knitting it with this mohair that I have. This is lace weight mohair, so I'm knitting it double, or I'm holding it double. And this is Knit Picks. So this is like the bags and bags of mohair that I have. I used to knit fox ears and sew them onto little hats and sell them on Etsy, so I have a lot of this yarn left over. So I decided to pair these together. I was originally going to do the As If tee, which is a pattern on Ravelry. I can't remember the maker's name right now. Oh, I have it right here. Nope, I don't. But it's a really cute little mohair, and it's a little top. And I was eyeballing it, but I came into the issue of not having spare cash to purchase patterns at this time, so I decided to just start something myself. So this little stitch pattern, I guess, is technically mosaic knitting. So in this yarn pattern is usually offset. So your rows are usually offset. So if you look at Andrea Mowry's Night Shift Cowl, you'll see it's basically the same stitch pattern, but rather than all of them being in line, they're offset. So it's really simple, it's really pretty. Oh my goodness, it's so soft. It's like so soft and cozy, and it's gonna be the cutest freaking thing. I just probably won't finish it for a few years. So we'll find out later on in life. But yeah, I don't have a name for it or anything, and this could end up being a disaster. I could end up knitting it and then having a lot of fitting issues. Right now, so far, every try-on that I've had, it seems to be working. And I have accurate gauge, so hopefully it's more successful than I'm thinking it will be. I was also considering maybe making it into a poncho, but I still don't think I'm going to have enough yarn, so I'm like, I might as well just knit as much as I can, as far as I can, into a sweater, then stop, and then pick it up some other day when I find compatible yarn. Or just tear it out and cry about it, because it was a beautiful idea. It's just not working out. So that's everything that I've been working on. I do want to share some yarn that that has come into my stash recently. So this is some yarn that I have been eyeing for a while. It comes from my work. Part of the place that I work at is an organic farm, and a couple of years ago or last year they had sheep, So they were sadly sheep for slaughter. But then they also did take all of their wool and get some of it spun, some of it was turned into batting. They just kind of tried a little bit of everything with it. So I decided to get a little bit of it. I just got 2 skeins. I kind of made my own price for them, so I still have to pay my coworker for them. This is Romley yarn, so it's from the Romley sheep. It's a little bit sticky, I guess is the best way to put it. It's a little rough and sticky right now, but this is just bare wool. It has some smell to it, so I need to wash this as well as dye a skein. So I'm gonna give it a shot. I really want to do some plant-based dyeing. I need to make it yellow because I'm planning on knitting some hats that are the color of our business and that are all business related. So for our floral design team, because we like to all be matching and look cute. So it'd be perfect for winter. This is sport weight, which I think will be pretty good for hats. I just want to kind of see, since it's a bit itchy. So I just want to see if I can just soften it up a little bit and see how well it takes dye. So I have some fun things to do in the future. Probably going to be a little while. So, but maybe you'll see that in the next episode if I give it a shot. If I feel brave. So that wraps up like all of the actual things that I have to show you. The rest is just sort of me chit-chatting for a couple seconds. I believe in the last episode I talked about how I reorganized my yarn stash and planned out everything that I would be making with all of the yarn that I have, because I'm a crazy person who likes to do that. So I just kind of wanted to update you. So I realized that I really am not financially able to be spending so much money on knitting patterns. I had a lot that I was going to have to purchase. And I just really took that into consideration. I was like, a lot of these patterns cost somewhere around $7 to $10 that I'm interested in getting. And I was like, if I'm purchasing 1 to 2 of those a month, that's, it's around $20. And then, if I want to purchase any yarn or if I want to do something, and like we don't even really have a budget like to go out and get coffee. So I was like, this is an expense that it's very easy for me to cut out of my life and to, throw towards something a little bit different, like maybe a night out with friends. Because as I looked around me, I had a wealth of knitting patterns that have been sitting on my shelf or sitting in my library that I have yarn for and that I can easily make. So I reorganized everything, and I wrote up a whole new list. So it's all fresh, it's all clean, which just actually made me a lot more excited to knit. And I still have a few on here that I would like to purchase, because I did buy yarn with the intention of specifically knitting it for that pattern. I really enjoy going through my yarn stash and just kind of checking up on everything that I have and making sure that everything is getting used, because like I said, I'm not somebody who really has the budget to just spend money willy-nilly on yarn. I can't just go to a yarn shop. I specifically do not go to yarn shops because this happens. I purchased something like this, I purchased this yarn on a whim at a knitting store, and luckily it was a cheaper option than she had. But hand-dyed yarn runs like $25 to $30 a skein. It's pretty difficult to find something around $10 a skein at a hand knitting shop. And usually when I go in there, I want to support the business. I want to support small stores. So I usually end up walking out of there with something. But like I said, I don't have that kind of budget anymore. We don't have an income that gives us money that we can just freely spend, as we did a couple years ago, because right now my husband is a student. So our money is much better spent somewhere else, because that doesn't mean I have to stop knitting. I probably have enough yarn to keep me knitting for a good. And that's where my cell phone died. So please excuse this interesting / awkward voiceover that I'll be doing. I was talking about how I have enough yarn to last me probably a good year, maybe even more, depending on how fast I knit, and that I'm perfectly happy and content with that. So I won't be purchasing any more yarn in the future, at least in large quantities. If it is a special occasion, I'm not against buying a skein or something like that if I happen to have the cash. I did also film a section of me talking about everything that I have on my list to knit in the future, but it was kind of drawn out and I was very distracted and tired when I was talking about it. So I won't be sharing that on this podcast, but maybe I'll share a couple of those in the next episode. But for now, I will pass the baton back to the rest of the podcast footage that I have, which is just me signing off and saying goodbye. So I'm going to be wrapping this up then. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and chatting about yarn and being interrupted by my cats and all of those good things. My phone died in the middle of this, so I might be missing some footage, which will be great. Hopefully this podcast can come together. I want to try to do something a little more creative with it. We'll find out. So I hope you all have a really wonderful rest of your summer, which is like, just a couple more weeks. Good luck to those of you who have started school. I'll probably see you maybe sometime in September or October. Who knows? Time always escapes us. So, bye-bye.